The word compact is used in the motoring industry so much it's lost all sense of meaning. A small SUV is not compact. It is just not. But there are cars that are definitely compact. Ones you could almost stick in your pocket. And these are the smallest of all of them, and boy, are they weeny. And speaking of small, we've got a little request for you. If you enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then we'll talk about the one you already know about. Yeah, you knew we were going to start with this one, didn't you? As sure as Clarkson will shout at some point during the next Grand Tour series, the Peel P50 will be in any list of teeny weeny cars. It's 50 by name, and it's 50 by nature, because it's named after its minuscule wheelbase of 50 inches, or 1,277mm in modern speak, but that doesn't sound quite as small as 50 inches. And they built 50 of them in the Isle of Man. Somehow, despite being slightly smaller than some televisions, it took the Peel Engineering Company 3 years between 1962 and 1965 to make them. At the time, a Peel P50 was yours for £299, which is roughly £6,400 today. And in 2010, Guinness named it the smallest car ever built. Presumably it took 45 years for that to happen because someone lost one of them down the back of the sofa. In detail, the P50 is 134 centimetres long, 98 centimetres wide, 100 centimetres high, and it weighs just 56 kilograms, which is less than some commercial lorry tyres. Power came from a 49cc DKW engine with a 3-speed gearbox, all forwards. If you wanted to reverse, there was a handle, and you could just drag it along. Top speed? 37 miles an hour. But while you were just about keeping up with town speed limits, you could achieve 100 miles per gallon. Allegedly. Colours? Red, white, or blue. They're very British. Oh, and did you know the P50's back? After being pitched on Dragon's Den of all places, you can buy one from Micro Car Specialists in Sutton in Ashfield. It's not 299 quid though. Try 14,879 for a petrol or 13,679 for an EV, and if anything was ripe for EV conversion, surely it's the smallest car in history. All of the cars on this list, well most of them, are as cool as they are weeny, but this one is pretty damn cool. Buddy Electric, yes, like the elf, is a Norwegian electric city car that launched in the early 2000s. And you couldn't miss it, even though it was just 244 centimetres long, 143 wide, and 144 centimetres tall. Because it was the most vivid of greens and looked like a small box that had become sentient. It had a wheelbase of 155 centimetres, which is only 3 centimetres shorter than that on a Triumph Street Triple, but somehow it manages to seat 2 more people. Yes, somehow 3 people are supposed to fit into Buddy. If you think EV range hasn't come very far in the last 20 years, remember that the Buddy could go a stonking 12 to 37 miles. And that range depended not on battery choice, but on which season you were driving in. Your top speed, though, outstripped the Peel, whizzing along to 50 miles an hour. Charging to that massive range took about 8 hours, or if you were near a rapid charger, 1 hour would give you 6 miles. Despite all this, somehow the Buddy and its predecessor, the Kewit, made up 20% of all the electric cars in Norway in 2007. By 2013, there were about 1,500 of them on the road. Ah yes, where would this list be without a bubble car? The earliest of the microcars. The Ascetta is perhaps the most recognisable microcar of all, and probably stakes a claim for being one of the most recognisable cars in the world. You know the score. The door was the whole front of the car, so don't park it too close to the wall because there's no reverse. BMW bought the rights and flogged them, and it helped to save the company. People either adore Ascettas or they detest them. It was first sold in the 1950s as the original ISO Autoveicoli Ascetta, which was a tiny 2-seater with a 236cc 10 horsepower 2-stroke bike engine combined with a 4-speed gearbox, which we believe at that time did have reverse. BMW's licensed cars built in Brighton had a 289cc 4-stroke engine and could wobble along to 53 miles an hour. It became the best-selling single-cylinder car in the world, as a mind-blowing 161,728 were built. It was also the first production car capable of 94 miles per gallon. Who says cars used to be thirsty? No, don't check the resolution of your screen. It just looks like that. It's not even been photoshopped. The Tango T600 was actually that odd. It is perhaps the strangest microcar of all. It was made by Washington-based Commuter Cars, who boldly called it a sports car. Measuring 257 centimeters long and 99 centimeters wide, we're not entirely sure you'd want to do much sporting in it. Commuter Cars founder Rick Woodbury's research told him that 106 million people in the US alone commuted to work by themselves. So the logical conclusion was to make cars for just one person. The Tango T600 was originally intended to be powered by hydrogen, but delays in that technology's viability meant it got batteries. But it had one motor in each wheel, which is the kind of thing you still really only see in concept cars today. Commuter Cars promised to build 100 a year from 2005, and the first one was delivered to George Clooney. Yeah, but the second car wasn't finished until 2008, and by the end of that year, there were 10. Each one was built and sold for around £121,000, and by 2014, Commuter Cars hadn't broken 20 sales yet. But what we'd like to do is break 20 likes. So, if you do like the video, hit the like button. And just remember that we really appreciate every single one of you watching this video, liking it and subscribing. And now let's talk about something else that's really useful. A microcar with a purpose. Microcars are niche, but niches can always be subdivided into more niches, and this one potentially also has a very good purpose. The Kangaroo is the first microcar ever built exclusively for wheelchair users. It was designed in Hungary by a company that specialises in aids for the disabled, and the Kangaroo was eventually built in the US. It is barely bigger than a wheelchair itself, just 215 centimeters long, 115 wide, and 147 centimeters from top to bottom. But the genius is that the entire rear of the car is a door. So the wheelchair can be rolled straight into the car and up to a set of handlebar controls. It's also older than you might think, although it was sadly never a success. The Kangaroo was launched in the mid-90s, and it was capable of doing 30 miles an hour for 30 miles. Oh, I guess we better do this one then. The Reaver Revive was a tiny electric car built at first by the Reaver Electric Car Company and later by Mahindra. You may not recognise that name, but that's because in Britain it was called the G-wizz. Somehow, despite almost universal dislike, the G-wizz hung around from 2001 to 2012, a full 11 years. And despite being gone for a decade, we're still trying to scrub it from our brains. At 260 centimeters long, 130 centimeters wide and 150 centimeters tall, it's one of the larger cars in this list, but still tiny. Its USP here is that it could fit 4 people, and the emphasis is on the word people, because its capacity was 2 adults and 2 children. Its electric motors boasted 17 horsepower, and when you engage its boost function, it could even manage 50 miles an hour. As is well known, early versions failed crash tests, and Lotus was brought in to try and bolster safety, resulting in the addition of front disc brakes, a collapsible steering column, and a reinforced chassis. And the fact that none of those were initially included in the design means that we never really want to drive one, thank you very much. In 2009, a lithium-ion batteried version was launched, so it could now be charged in just 6 hours and go 75 miles. Only 4,600 were ever sold. Or should we say, somehow 4,600 were sold. And finally, the longest produced microcar of the 20th century. The Foldermobile was produced in various forms from 1950 to 1969. That's nearly 2 decades. In fact, the very first version had a wooden frame, vinyl bodywork, and the engine from a chainsaw. Eventually, The Fuldermobile was developed to have a steel tube frame chassis and a 360cc engine, so the N2 Fuldermobile could hit a heady 50 miles an hour, the same as that G-wizz 50 years later. The fabric body was also replaced with hammered aluminium sheets, giving it a very distinctive look that earned it the nickname Silver Flea. 3,000 were built during the Fuldermobile's lifetime, and every single one varied in size. But the early N version was 272 centimeters long, 140 centimeters wide, and 132 centimeters tall, giving it a place on this list. But no matter which version, its distinctive form remained the same and arguably birthed the term bubble car. Well, those are the smallest cars that ever went into production. But which would you like a go in? Or have we missed one out? I don't think we have, but let us know in the comments below.